it was like this was not here. It was totally different. And I got nauseous, and then I started hearing a whisper from this side, and I was trying to whisper. I tried to hear her, and I could hear you guys talking, and I couldn't hear her. You stopped talking, and I heard her. I can't get her. I can't get her. Help me.
Why wouldn't you? We get in there, we set up the DVR, then we get the witnesses straight, and then off we go for some ghost hunting. Maybe some clam chowder. Hey! The Five Fishermen restaurant in Halifax, Nova Scotia is best known for its fine cuisine. However, it's also well known as a hotspot of alleged paranormal activity that's often associated with the building's rich history. In 1912, when the Titanic sank, many of the bodies that were recovered were brought to a funeral home that was connected to the building. Several years later, in 1917, Halifax was devastated by the explosion of a munition ship in the harbor. Thousands died, and many of the victims were brought to the funeral home in preparation for their eventual burial. Many people theorize that the victims of these terrible disasters are somehow linked to the paranormal activity that's been reported over the years at the Five Fishermen restaurant. Holly and I arrived at the Five Fishermen around closing time and prepared to spend the entire evening there. Inside, we were greeted by Leonard Curry and Sandy Gardner, two longtime employees of the restaurant. Leonard was the first to tell us his story.
I've had many odd experiences, but I suppose the strangest one happened to me when I first started working here. I didn't know about the history or the reputation of the building, and on this particular day I came in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to set up the salad bar. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon I'd be the only person in the dining room. We opened at 5 o'clock. And so I'd go about taking items for the salad bar across the main room in front of the bar. And as I was passing by on one of my trips, I'd heard a crash come from behind me. So it came from behind the bar area here, proceeded up here, and at that time this room was a smoking section. There was a stack of ashtrays here, and one was lying on the floor, which I thought was odd, but obviously had fallen off. So I bent down to pick it up, and when I stood up, I was looking in this mirror. And in this mirror, I could see a man walking down past the stables. It happened so fast, but what I remember thinking was, he's wearing something that's from a different time. So I never said anything about it, but a few years after that, there was an assistant manager that was at the salad bar, and he was talking on the phone, and again, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he was the only person in the dining room. And at one point, saw a man standing on the landing, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, I'll be right with you." He finished his conversation and went to find this gentleman and see what he wanted. There was nobody there. He went down to the foyer, and the foyer was empty. He checked the door. The door was locked, so there was no way anybody could come in. And he was telling me about this experience later on that evening when we were working together. And it was the first time I told anybody about what happened to me, and the description of the guy matched in terms of what we remember him wearing and the fact that he had this long white hair.
Leonard's description of the white-haired gentleman made me think that perhaps he had had something to do with the funeral home. With the detailing in the long black coat, maybe he was an employee or even the owner. Whoever he was not alone. Sandy spoke of her experiences here, and they were of another entity altogether.
I was closing the restaurant one evening, and as a supervisor, we're supposed to check the washrooms and make sure that there is nobody left lingering. Turned the corner in the washroom, and I opened the door, and I saw a little girl standing there. She pleaded with me with her eyes. Her eyes stayed with me, and they still stay with me. I can still see her eyes, and she was a very unhappy young lady. I was quite upset by it because she really did seem very, very unhappy. By the look in her eyes, she had been trying for a long time to communicate with somebody, and it just happened to be she had gotten up enough energy to show herself, and I happened to be the one she showed herself to. I don't think it was specifically me that she needed to speak to, but she definitely needed to communicate with somebody, and I happened to be there.
There were certainly lots of reports of paranormal activity at the Five Fishermen. The most compelling ones were the story of the white-haired man who had been seen in the dining area and around the salad bar, and the sightings of the sad little girl in the ladies' washroom. Holly and I decided to place our infrared cameras in the dining room overlooking the mirror and the salad bar. We also ran one camera upstairs into the ladies' washroom. On this occasion, we also had a thermal camera with us, and of course, our digital audio recorders. After we finished setting up our infrared cameras, our next order of business was to set up a trigger item in the salad bar.
All right, so
So what we have here is a trigger object, because part of the story of the Five Fishermen is that the ghosts might be from the Halifax explosion of 1917 or the Titanic disaster of 1912. So something in the early 20th century. We've got an original photo from that time period of a steamship, I guess. And what we're going to do is we're going to place it in the salad bar, which sounds strange, but this is an area where apparently a lot of paranormal activity has taken place. So we're going to place it in here. We're going to mark it with some tape. Oops.
and not only from the time period, but was actually on a wall in a house in Halifax during the Halifax explosion.
So hopefully when we come back, even if the ghosts don't come talk to us, they can make their presence known by moving this painting, which hopefully will still be here because it's a very valuable painting, so, or picture. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to make sure it's lined up along the edges. Like that.
There we go. So we're just going to leave this here for whatever spirits might be dwelling in the Five Fishermen and see what happens.
Once we had finished setting up the pictures, the trigger item, we asked Sandy to show us up to the ladies' washroom where she had seen the little girl. So this is the upstairs bathroom.
So we're on our way to the ladies' washroom, where the night that I was closing and saw an apparition, I had opened the door, and so when I made sure that there was nobody left in the building, as I turned the corner, there was a young girl standing right here.
And how long did you say you had seen her for?
I think it was just seconds, but it was her eyes that I focused on
And she looked
the
at
most, and she did definitely look at me,
you. And
without question.
after you saw her for several minutes,
Several seconds.
she dissipated?
She did. She
Before
did.
your eyes, you saw her disappear?
I think I might have shut my eyes and opened my
Blinked?
eyes again, and she was gone. She was gone. I don't remember seeing light dissipate, but there was light around her when I had first seen her.
And there was a shimmering sort of glow of some sort of blue glow or something around her, or was
Not
it a white
blue,
glow?
It was white.
White.
It was white. It was colorless.
After hearing Sandy's story, Holly and I decided to spend some time investigating the ladies' washroom. We're interested in learning about you. So, if you wish, take the opportunity, say hello in whatever way you see fit, provided you're friendly.
Nice claws.
Well, it's the lawyer in me. I just want to make sure that, we've covered all the angles. And it didn't take long for something unusual to happen. Okay, that was weird.
I don't even know what that was. I seriously don't know what that was.
That was odd. That was,
The handles on the door are hot. When Ghost Cases returns, Paul and I continue our investigation of the Five Fishermen restaurant.
perhaps not unusual to find in a bathroom,
Not at
women's
all.
bathroom. But here's the thing.
continue our investigation of the Five Fishermen restaurant.
So what we were doing is Holly and I were sitting up here in the ladies' bathroom where I know it sounds strange, but where Sandy some time ago saw a small young child sitting right where we're sitting now. She came around and saw it here. And so we hung out here for about half an hour, and we had the tape recorder going, and we'll see what kind of audio phenomenon we might have picked up on that. We had the thermal cam going, all sorts of stuff. And we're just sitting there, not even talking. And all of a sudden we hear what sounds like a penny dropping.
I thought it was a penny at first,
I thought it was a coin. And it came from over here, absolutely no question, right over here. And so there was nothing on top of the counter here.
Completely flat, as you can see.
But,
the
yeah.
only thing I can think of is that if there was something, I thought maybe there was a indentation in the wood down here.
But there isn't.
It's completely flat, if
Yeah.
you can actually get down there and see that.
Yeah.
And the other thought I had, just by looking, you've got the copper piping. So perhaps if it had slid down the edge here some
Might have
time
been-
ago,
Might have
it
been on
could
the
have
copper
slipped
piping.
off. But,
But here's where we were, and
you got that?
I gotta. So when I investigated underneath, I did find this, which is a button from what I suspect is a woman's coat. Perhaps not unusual to find in a bathroom,
Not at
woman's
all.
bathroom. But here's the thing: it was directly right under the middle of this. So how did it? If it fell, where did it fall from?
It didn't roll. There was no audible
The
rolling.
only place it could have fallen from was from somehow this copper pipe here. So here's where it would. Here's how it would have gone down, like that. But that's not where it was. It was, even if it was right here,
Still rolls.
and that is possibly what we heard. Because now, if you put it there, it's more or less, it was like some form of coinage. Where's that button? Oh, there it is. Ah, it's got me. Uh-oh. Well, it's really
Cute, that's cute.
It's really dirty under there. Things I do for science. That's my good suit. Ew. Penny. Button. Oops.
Okay, try that one
Preferably
again.
button not dropping on the money.
Oh, that one sounded different altogether. Yeah, but still, like, see how it bounces? Did you hear that?
It's hollow. Half an hour into the investigation, and we had already had something happen. But a thorough search of the area revealed a probable explanation in the form of a button from a lady's coat. However, the fact that it fell at the time it did is certainly a coincidence at the very least, and perhaps represented something even stranger. We concluded our investigation of the ladies' washroom and then moved to the dining room area. We sat down directly under the mirror where Leonard had seen the apparition of a white-haired man.
After about an hour in the dining room with nothing out of the ordinary happening, Paul and I decided to conclude the investigation. We went back to check on the trigger item, which sadly hadn't moved. It was getting late, probably about 3 a.m. in the morning, so we thought we'd wrap it up for the night. We were pretty happy with what we had thought had been a very interesting evening. However, it wasn't until we got back and were reviewing the footage and the evidence that we were surprised at how much was really going on around us that night. One piece of evidence that was recorded by our infrared cameras overlooking the salad bar caught our attention. We're always careful when reporting DVR evidence. In most cases, light anomalies can be explained by dust or insects reflecting off the infrared light. In this case, however, the light anomaly is an unusual shape and size and follows a path around the salad bar that one could imagine a human being, or in this case, possibly a spirit, might follow. Watch for a seemingly transparent shadow that appears at the left side of the screen, and then follow it as the shadow passes by the trigger item and becomes more visible just before it disappears off camera at the right of the screen. Could this have been a curious spirit examining the picture of the ship? We don't know, but perhaps our trigger item worked better than we first thought.
Our digital audio recording devices also picked up a strange and anomalous piece of evidence as Holly and I were beginning our investigation of the ladies' washroom, just prior to the button dropping on the floor. As Holly and I listened to the clip a few days later, we heard something that sounded to us very much like a distraught young child, which fit with the story that Sandy had told of the little girl in the ladies' washroom. There were no children in the building with us that evening, which leaves the question of how our audio recorders picked up what seems to be the voice or the cry of a small child. Holly and I had some very interesting experiences during our visit to the Five Fishermen. The object that dropped in the bathroom, the anomaly that appeared in the DVR footage at the salad bar, and the audio evidence that sounded similar to a crying child. It was this last piece of evidence, the recorded cry of the small child in the washroom, that I found both compelling and also extremely disturbing. We decided to return on another day with Kelly Muse, a local psychic and spiritual healer with whom we had worked before. I was interested to see what she might sense about the building.
We showed Kelly to the third floor where Sandy had seen the little girl. We wanted to give Kelly a chance to explore the space on her own, so we decided to split up. Paul offered to go sit in the girls' washroom alone, go figure, and I decided to go back down to the dining room. I got curious though, and I decided to come back up to see how Kelly was doing, and I was glad I did. She had been able to sense the spirit of a woman in the hallway, who she felt was forcibly being separated from her daughter by another spirit.
And Bridget told me she had felt something on the steps, and I were walking and I stopped, and I went toward the chair, and I felt an overwhelming feeling of dizziness. It was like, I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. I sat there, and it was like I spaced out, totally spaced out. It was like this was not here. It was totally different. And I got nauseous, and then I started hearing a whisper from this side, and I was trying to whisper. I tried to hear her, and I could hear you guys talking, and I couldn't hear her. You stopped talking, and I heard her. I can't get her. I can't get her. Help me. I'm sorry. And I said, why can't you go get her? He won't let me. And that's when I saw there's someone in the bathroom. It's a male, and his face is half gone. I don't know who he is.
I had never seen Kelly this distraught before. She was obviously having an intense emotional experience. So I asked her what we needed to do next.
I only know one way to help, and it's what I know. I have my holy water, and we have to cleanse this place, absolutely, and send whatever's there away so she can come get her.
Why would he be keeping her here?
Because he's by himself. He does not want to be by himself. And she's afraid. Okay. He doesn't want her to go.
So what do you...
So we have to send him away. We have to make him go so he's away from here.
When Ghost Cases returns, Kelly tries to free the spirit of a little girl trapped in the Five Fishermen restaurant.
Is my arm supposed to hurt?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good.
Paul and I continue our investigation of the Five Fishermen restaurant with psychic Kelly Muse. Kelly and I entered the men's washroom where she had sensed a male spirit keeping the little girl spirit from moving on. She began conducting her spiritual cleansing ritual, and as she was concluding it, I began to have the oddest sensation in my right arm.
I want you to see in your mind, Holly, a light, a bright light, a beautiful light. And I want you to send him towards it.
Me?
Yes. Close your eyes.
What if I send him to the wrong place?
No, there's only light. There's nowhere else to go. He's already in the darkness. He needs to go to the light. So vision the light, see the light. Now show him the light. Just like he turns around and there it is. I want you to go to the light. Say it. Go to the light.
Okay.
Say, I want you to go to the light.
I want you to go to the light.
This is what ghost investigating is, I've discovered on my journey. A lot of just sitting for minutes, hours even, with nothing happening. And then you get that one moment when something happens that changes the way you perceive your reality and the things around you and the world that we live in.
Arm is tingling.
Yep,
My right arm is tingling.
yep, he's going. He's turning.
I don't know if I've had that moment, but I've had a couple of moments that were genuinely weird. And one of them happened in here, which is why we're back trying to recreate it.
My arm is numb.
It's okay, it's okay. Okay. Go towards the light. Okay, he's going.
You could be here for an hour or 2 or 3 and have nothing happen. Nothing might ever happen. But when something does happen, that's what makes this all sort of worthwhile. Interesting.
My arm's supposed to hurt.
Yep.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. Take a breath. Okay. Okay. He's gone. Do you not feel the air different here?
Having completed the cleansing ritual, Kelly and I explained to Paul what had happened, and I decided to mention the strange physical experience I'd had.
All right. So, and I know you take no offense when I say I'm skeptical just in general of all of this, but this is interesting. Arm physical signs that you can actually feel. Your arm went numb, and your head started to tingle.
We were first in the space, and Kelly was asking me if I felt anything, which, and I was like, no, and she's like, can you see anything? Do you see anything? I'm like, no, I'm not getting anything. I'm like this part of my head is kind of tingly, and that's lasted for a little while.
Yes.
And actually got a little bit stronger as she was trying to cleanse the space. And then as we backed out of the bathroom, and she was doing her cleansing and trying to get me to imagine them going into the light, which I was having a hard time focusing on. That's for whatever reason. My imagination's pretty good, but then my hand started to tingle, my right hand, and then it started to get heavy and start to go numb. And in some ways I can still feel it. It's not as strong as it was. And I said, sorry, that's strange. So I said, okay, Kelly, my arm's starting to go numb. Is that normal? She's like, okay, you need to start saying these words, which was to go into the light, which, again, fun. And she then later informed me. I was like, okay, so what's going on? Why are my hands heavy? And she's like, oh, he was holding on to you.
Yeah.
Over the next hour, I observed the spiritual cleansing ritual that Kelly started in the ladies' washroom.
Tell them to go to the light.
Go to the light.
You are safe. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, I want you to go, cross over. They're being surrounded by the light. Did you hear that? There they go.
I observed no visible signs that led me to believe that a spirit was cleansed that evening. However, I don't completely discount the experience that Holly and I shared in the ladies' washroom, nor can I discount Holly's experiences with Kelly earlier in the evening, or the myriad stories told over the years by the people who work at the Five Fishermen. If in fact the spirit of a little girl was trapped in the ladies' washroom at the Five Fishermen restaurant, all that I can say is that I genuinely hope Kelly was successful in her efforts to show her a path to a place that offered the little girl the peace I can only imagine she was longing for.